The last 5 years have been dark time for female dominated cinema. And what I mean is, Hollywood has decided that they want to have more women interested in their films. So they've decided to either remake or target women as the primary movie going audience. And we see terrible films like the Charlie's Angels reboot. They went from something fun and exciting where women were winning but not invulnerable to whatever the heck that was. Then you see a couple of the new Terminators, and probably the most egregious was 2016's Ghostbuster remake. Even TV shows have gone too far. You have shows that are not so bad on their own, like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but the overt sexuality and over the top girls good, boys bad makes people not want to watch. Even the reboot of Anne of Green Gables, Anne with an E, is quite unrealistic. But finally, in 2020, there is a new movie that gets the female protagonist right, Enola Holmes. I'm going to be the first to admit when I saw the advertisements for Enola Holmes, the younger sister of the more famous Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes who lives in their shadow, well, I thought it was going to be another piece of garbage. But this was very well written, very well acted, and probably the best female coming of age story that I have seen in the last 10 years. At least the best one coming out of Western countries. Maybe some anime has better, but this is good. And I'll give you the top 4 reasons why it's so good. Just a quick overview. The movie is about Enola Holmes, who is the unheard of and unsung younger sister of Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes. It's played by Millie Bobby Brown of Stranger Things fame. First, I didn't recognize her, and then I thought, holy crap, 11 has hair. She's raised at home by her mother, who trains her in a Sherlockian way. She's trained in jujitsu, she's trained in physics and possibly engineering, in history, in languages, art, an all-around Renaissance woman. But she's kept at home. She's never really allowed outside, so she doesn't have any friends, and she doesn't have any real idea of how the world works. One day her mother disappears, and her brothers come. She becomes the ward of Mycroft, who then wants to put her in a reform school for girls, or boarding school, or finishing school, or whatever you call it. It's a girls' school, and it doesn't look like fun. So Enola escapes and goes to find her mom, who she believes is in London, and adventures ensue. The biggest trope that we see in most modern Hollywoods concerning women is the Mary Sue. You have characters like Rey from the new Star Wars movies and Captain Marvel, played by the wooden Brie Larson. They never have to struggle. Rey never needs to train in order to beat the famously trained Jedi Kylo Ren. She even manages to best and surprise Luke with her quote-unquote powers. Enola Holmes is not that way. She's shown many times through various parts of the movie studying when she's young. They mention one part where she studies history in the morning, and then they have lunch, and then in the afternoon it's time for physical training, and then she has physics training. So she's learning all of these skills that we would associate with sort of an uber person like Sherlock Holmes. But she still has very clear flaws. And like I mentioned before, she doesn't really understand people. A good example of this is later in the movie, she's going to an estate to investigate a murder or a disappearance, depending on how you look at it. And she narrates to us while she's in a carriage that she's dressed like a widow because people won't ask too many questions of widows because they make them uncomfortable. But when she gets there, everyone's like, why is a widow here? She claims that she's Sherlock Holmes' assistant. And they're all like, why would Sherlock Holmes send a widow to investigate things? This doesn't make any sense. So although she has a lot of advanced knowledge, like nerds of old, she doesn't really know how to apply that knowledge to social situations. In addition, although she's shown as having mastery of a lot of different skills and knowledges, she's not a master in all of them. It's shown that she hasn't mastered the corkscrew, And that's a jujitsu move where basically you're on the ground, you wrap your legs around the opponent's legs, turn over like a corkscrew, and they hit the ground. She fails to get this right in several different occasions. And it's great because by the end of the movie, of course she gets it right, but it takes failing several times in order for her to succeed. The second way that this movie is better than its recent compatriots is that it doesn't portray men as dopes. You see, Ghostbusters 2016, where the male secretary is incredibly stupid. He's incapable of doing anything right. He's just a beefcake. And yes, that's a role reversal from how many women were treated over the time, but this has become a modern mainstay. The dad is always dumb, the mom is always right. Here, men are portrayed equally smart. We have Sherlock and Mycroft, both very smart on their own. They're not portrayed as stupid as you would expect. Even Mycroft, who wants to send Enola to a finishing school, well, he is kind of doing it for her own good. Yes, he is worried about how his reputation would be tarnished, but he truly believes that in order for his sister to have a good life, she needs to marry well. This actually was true. Women who didn't marry well or didn't have husbands spent most of their days slaving away in very poor conditions, either on farm communities or maybe in a factory or as a house servant. It's not good when you're 70 scrubbing other people's toilets. And then we have her kind of sort of romantic interest, Tewksbury. He has a really long and pretentious name, which I'm not going to pretend to remember. There's Tewksbury and Basil, but we'll just call him Tewksbury. At first, she thinks of him as an idiot. But as the movie comes on, we see him as very smart. He manages to pay a porter to sneak himself onto a train, which he then cuts himself out of a carpet bag to escape. We see that he has planned and left false breadcrumbs to his escape on his family estate. And we can see that as the movie goes on, yes, Enola actually does kind of berate him a bit for being stupid, but every time she does that, it's shown as though she's actually the stupid one. She's the one who's a little bit ignorant because she doesn't understand. Tewksbury is very knowledgeable in a lot of different subjects, such as horticulture. He loves the outdoors. He's sort of a conservationist, but he is a liberal for the time in the sense that he wants to give women equal rights. One of the villains, Linthorn, who is trying to capture Tewksbury, and he actually is smart. He managed to track Enola down. He was looking for her. He saw through her disguises, and he actually fights her. Not, with kid gloves. He really tries to murder her at one point. But she does manage to escape with her smarts. It's only by having a competent villain to fight against that you really have a heroic hero. And the last but not least is poor Lestrade. Lestrade, in most of the Sherlock Holmes stories, is the commissioner of Scotland Yard. He's the head of Scotland Yard. And he's seen as kind of goofy and capable of running his own investigations, which is why he needs Sherlock. And here he is somewhat shown that way at first and disrespected, but he sees through Enola's disguise. He knows that something's up, and he challenges her to a competition about who knows Sherlock Holmes the best. And in the end, he's able to capture her, and he knows that she is Sherlock's sister. The third way that this movie is better than other recent movies is that Enola relies on herself, but she does accept help when she needs it. There are a few times in the movie where Sherlock gives her advice. You need to dangle your feet in the water if you want to attract sharks. Also her jiu-jitsu teacher, who advises her, don't follow your mom, follow your own path. And it's by this as opposed to Captain Marvel, not accepting advice from anyone. All these other women characters who, no, I have to do my own thing. When people who have a lot more experience are giving you advice, it's best to at least consider it. And the fourth way that this character is better than most other movies is that
she picks a moderate path. Now, what I mean by this is the movie is sort of an analogy for politics in the 1800s, but sort of for now. And what we see is the Holmes' mother is actually involved in some kind of a radical feminist group that is going to blow something up. It's implied that it's the House of Lords before a vote on women's lib issues. Enola could join her mother, but she actually tries to stop her mother because she realizes that this kind of violence is wrong. But she still does hold true that she believes women need political liberation or emancipation, depending on how you would view the issue. And it's by picking this middle path where she does help women in England, but yet does not cause mass violence to innocent bystanders that she truly is an upstanding and morally correct hero. It's really the moral values that we lack in most of these modern movies. Now, this is 2020, so we can't get through a movie without totally talking about privilege and whatnot. And there is one scene where a woman tells Sherlock Holmes that he doesn't care about any of these issues. He doesn't want to get in politics because he's very comfortable in a lifestyle and a system of privilege. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's really this woman's place to criticize Sherlock, but, it's one small scene. So, would I recommend this movie? Hell yeah. This movie is great. I would definitely recommend this to any young women. It stars Enola Holmes when she's about 16. Great for, probably at least, let's say, 10 years and up. But it still has a lot of value as an adult. It was shot well. Millie Bobby Brown is a great actor. Henry Cavill plays Sherlock Holmes. You have Tewksbury played by, I don't remember the guy's name, but you've seen him in a ton of stuff. He's pretty good. I highly recommend this movie forever. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave your comment down below. What did you think of Enola Holmes?